If you missed the tax deadline, Javis Tax Service can help. There are certain circumstances that allow for a tax extension without additional fees. We can let you know if you qualify for this service. If you still need to file, we can get the paperwork in quickly and assure that all fees or penalties are met. It's better to file late taxes than not file at all to avoid garnishments. Use Javis Tax Service to help get your taxes filed quickly and correctly. For more information to set up a free consultation, call Javis Tax Service at 803-851-7112. That's 851-7112.
Oh, the keyboard's over there too, Darren.
Hello, everybody on Facebook, YouTube.
What up? Not my internet. Let's see what's good. Hey.
Everybody's dressed in black.
Really, Ice?
This is...
This what we doing?
I mean, it is about death.
But the song is really good.
Thinking back on all the years.
Hello, everyone. This is Ebony Dixon, the baby jumper with Freethinkers Radio tonight. Ice.
Hey, it's Ice. What's going on?
Hey, guys. It's Beth.
Yeah, I'm here. David Pendergrass, you know.
He's here.
It's good.
We also have a special guest tonight, Mr. York Glover. He is an insurance agent. Welcome.
Good evening.
So today we're doing an Freethinkers Radio Express today. So we're going to give you 30 minutes of some information.
Straight up.
And we're doing a part 2 to coping with the unforeseen death of a loved one. And we're just coming off of the Irma experience. Where it just kind of tore up islands and Key West and South Florida, just kind of tore up the southeast area. And I think the death toll now has been in the 50s or something like that. But
that was Harvey, right?
That was Harvey.
Harvey, and then you add Irma to that.
It's probably more, a little bit more.
Irma probably got way more. They just took out the whole island, right?
Yeah. Because I know at first.
And even the Keys.
Yeah.
Right.
It was like the first 10 was like maybe like the first 3 to 4 hours.
And we can't forget the earthquake that happened in Mexico and the fires over on the West Coast.
Right. Right.
So when it comes to, I want to ask you, Mr. Glover, do you find that people are unprepared when preparing for people passing away or death when it comes to insurance?
Absolutely, and it's not a natural disaster that leads to that. Most people think they're Superman or Wonder Woman, and one of the things that we don't want to talk about is what happens when I'm not here, because it's emotional,
right?
But it's really an unemotional conversation because we already know that we're gonna die. It's going to happen, but what happens after that happens? So that's the conversation that I have every day. But you try to make that conversation as unemotional as possible, but you still tie emotions into it. Case in point, if you have children and you're not here, who takes care of the children? And what we say is, well, my mom will take care of them, or my sister or my brother or whatever. But with what funds will they take care of them with? You see what I'm saying? So now what happens is, and I don't know about y'all, I'm from this town called Beaufort, South Carolina, and we've seen, okay, well, look, you take Jimmy, I'll take Sarah, because I can't afford to take both. And now you have brothers and sisters that are raised as cousins.
Wow.
Because no one left vision, Somewhere I read a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And when you take that principle, how can you set it up if you don't set it up?
Right. It was one thing that was talked about on the previous show where a lot of people go through these unforeseen things and they think that they have a savings backed up, but it's not much of a savings when this happens. Like as far as like houses and land or whatever, taxes or whatever. Could you kind of go in a little bit more detail on that? process of how would that work? It's like if I have a savings account set up, I got $50,000 in the bank.
Okay.
I die, and my kids got to take care of everything else that I have, mortgage. What happens to that?
Well, I look at it common sense and math, basic math. You have $50,000 in your savings account. Do your kids still need your income?
Possible.
Okay, now if your kids still need your income, how long is that $50,000 going to last?
Right.
If I'm making $36,000 a year, check. If I'm bringing home $36,000 a year, then that $50,000 is going to last me about 18 months.
Right.
Or it lasts my children about 18 months. So now, you have a wife that you left and you have children. You still got a house. SCE and G don't care. You still got to make those payments. You still got car notes, et cetera, and so forth. Life still goes on, and where you were getting that money every 30 days stops. They'll send you a card, chicken and potato salads at the repast, but then that's it. Life still goes on. So how do you make sure the light stays on?
So is there a proper amount of, when you put it that way, I mean, is there a proper amount of insurance? Wow, we got to ask that question when we come back. Forgot it's the Express Show.
And this next song is called Hola by Holland. Hola.
Yeah, you think about it, doggone, people making 50 and 40 and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Most of the time they're not, you're not putting a lot back if all you make is like $40,000-$50,000 a year. You're not putting a lot back.
Yeah, and it's not a cookie cutter situation.
You see what I'm saying?
Every family should be treated differently. So a lot of times when you look at, well, my job told me I can do this and my job gives me this. Well, your job gave everybody that. So what's the difference between a husband and wife and one child and a husband and wife with 5 children and everybody's getting the same amount of money? It just doesn't mathematically make sense.
Hey, Bev. Sorry.
Well, thank y'all for tuning in on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Subscribe to the YouTube page.
Periscope, Twitch.
Yeah, that's it.
All that.
Yeah, everything.
Right up, everything. We everywhere.
We still with Spreaker too.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, Spreaker.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
iHeartRadio.
I heart. Yeah. Pretty cool.
We everywhere.
Look, it's all good. This is some good information. I know. We didn't get a chance to do. It's crazy. We didn't get a chance to do the show last week because of a storm. You know what I'm saying? When we were supposed to, cover a lot of this last week, and a storm stopped us, and none of us were.
And there's another one on the way.
Yep,
Maria, and then there's one after that one.
Yes, I thought there's one after that one too, right?
Lee.
So we got
Lee and Maria need to go back home.
So Jose is just out.
Jose, he went back somewhere. He trying to go to Europe or something.
You know what's funny? I've lived in the South my entire life. This is hurricane season.
Yep.
It happens.
Yep.
It's going to happen next year.
Yep.
It's going to happen 10 years from now.
It's just worse than normal. 2004, there was 3 hurricanes that went right through Central Florida. We didn't have power for a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah. But remember, I think it was 3 years in a row where we barely got rain in hurricane season. So it's sometimes it is, sometimes it ain't.
Yep.
Yeah, that's making Columbia situation is always crazy. Columbia never really feels that.
No. But shouts out to all my people in Beaufort and Charleston. We get it.
Right.
And
We're back.
Yeah. So so basically from what you're saying, when you think about it, like I say, when you're making 40, 50, you're really not putting much back anyway, you know what I'm saying, unless you've really found a way to really downsize your life, especially if you have children or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Maybe a single person making 50 can find some avenues.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying, Richland School District 1, I don't know about the rest of y'all, Richland School District 2 and all that, they want that bread. They want to take the kids everywhere. But the thing about it seems like, so we're in that situation, most of the people in that situation are trying to find ways to reinvest their money. You know what I'm saying? In a way, so how do you reinvest? You can't reinvest your money once you're dead, though. So where can you put it?
It's bookends. The first thing that you have to do is make sure that you protect your foundation. In finance, the foundation of your house is going to be life insurance. I call it income protection because I can't protect your life. But I can set up a plan to protect your income because that income still needs to come in.
Right.
So let's just say, for an example, we do a scenario, and I use the dime theory. The dime theory is DIME, death, because you got to take care of the funeral. I is going to be the income that still needs to come into the house. M is going to be the mortgage to make sure we take care of the mortgage. And if you have children, the E is for education to make sure that that's taken care of.
Right.
Because those 4 components pretty much takes care of what that family is going to need.
Mm-hmm.
So when we put that together, let's just say it comes to $350,000.
Right.
Now most people are saying, well, $350,000 of insurance is a lot. It's not. It's how you set it up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's if you die too soon. The next question is, what happens if you live too long? So at the same time that you have this bookend to take care of the foundation, you are building your assets over the time period. So if something happens in 5 years, you still have the $350,000.
Right.
But 20, 25 years, 30 years down the road, I have the $350 because I've built it. I am now self-insured. And the name of the game is getting to the position where you're self-insured and you don't have to depend on it. Now the insurance policy I have, I keep if I choose to because I have the cash. People who are multimillionaires and multi-billionaires don't have to have an insurance policy because they're self-insured. But if you don't have that money, then what you're doing is insuring the money until you get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people think that they still have time.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest thing nobody expects. They're like, oh, well, I'll have tomorrow, or I'll have the next day, or I'm young still. And so when we think about somebody that maybe has cancer or something, you're expecting death, right? You can prepare. But we forget that death can come at any time. And so then we're not prepared. So we don't have the insurance set up because we always say, well, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next week, or I'll do it next year when I've lost some weight, or I've quit smoking, or my insurance gets lower.
Because death is not tangible.
Right.
But my iPhone is.
Right.
And I'm going to have insurance because if it cracks, I will be able to get another one.
Absolutely.
My car is.
Right.
I know I may have to go get health insurance, and because of changes in the government, you have to get health insurance. But so all these things are insured. My house, I have insurance on because if it's a fire or whatever, a natural disaster, I can get my house rebuilt. But you can't rebuild your life.
Right.
And see, you can always rebuild a house, even if you didn't have homeowners insurance. It can be rebuilt. But what position are you putting your family in?
Right.
If I am not prepared, it's just being prepared. To me, I tell clients the most important bill that you pay every 30 days is your income protection, because every other bill, I lost my house. Can you get another one? Yes. The repo man came and got my car. Can you get another one? Yes.
Right.
You're not getting another life.
Right.
And
And
you
I
don't have
I will say that's so true. I told everyone I was going to try not to cry, but my dad passed away about 6.5 years ago, and he always pushed, like, get life insurance, make sure you're covered. And he died while he was jogging, and he was in shape, healthy, went to the doctor. He was a Marine, so he went to the VA, he went to the doctor all the time. And so we were not prepared emotionally for his death. We did not expect it. We did not see it coming, but he was prepared. And so I will say my mother is taken care of for the rest of her life because he was prepared in those ways. And so it's been really interesting seeing when other people have passed, how they are not prepared. And I'm very grateful, that my dad, it was very important to him that he protected his family through his income because my mom worked, she's an accountant, but he was still the main breadwinner. And so he made sure that she didn't have to work when he died, even though obviously it was very unexpected.
It's having that preparation.
And we'll be back.
And this is Hammer Time, Lecrae featuring 1K Few.
The opposite side is when people are not prepared, and it's hard enough to deal with a death because you actually have two. Death of the loved one, and then death of the income.
Right.
But the ripple effect is when you are not properly prepared, and then it's death of that family, and then now with generations, because you know, you sent me away, but you kept my sister. You didn't love me, and so now
There's a lot of abandonment.
right. And so now I have abandonment issues, and now I act funny at the family reunion, and I keep my kids away, and
Right.
you know, don't see grandmother. I don't have that relationship with grandmother because she gave me away when I was 9 because she couldn't afford to keep me.
Right.
And most mothers, most parents who love their children don't want to do that, but option B is better. Because right now I can't do it. And it's a financial thing. It's not a love thing. And we put ourselves in those positions because we're not prepared.
And then the spouse also, like you said, is almost forced to remarry.
Jody. Yeah. So it's either Jody or move back home with Big Mama, you know, or do something I don't want to do, or get a second or third job. So now I'm not home with my kids. So I'm not, the television and cable and the internet is raising my children because I have to work to make sure I keep the lights on. It's a financial situation. It's a math problem. So how do you solve the math problem? Unemotional.
That's crazy.
Good. I don't think a lot of people look at it like that. It's a math problem. Like, you know, they just look at, oh, I got to pay all this money, but they're not thinking about, I think, the whole picture. And I don't know.
Yeah. Which is why residual income is also really important.
Absolutely.
Like, I can literally will my business to my whole family. Like any of my kids, I can put it in a trust for them. And that's really, I mean, obviously life insurance is the foundation, like you were talking about, but that residual income for your family.
Warren Buffett arguably is one of the wealthiest men in the world. Warren Buffett says the fastest way to financial independence is through life insurance. I'm saying Warren Buffett knows what he's talking about.
I would say so.
I'm sitting here like, I need to call my peoples,
Yeah, I mean,
my insurance agent.
But now, watch this. Think about it. How many deaths in your family over the last 30 years?
right.
And is anybody in your family financially independent?
And we're back.
Wow.
Yeah, that's real.
That was a mic drop right there.
That was. Goodness gracious. So it's like, I would say this. I mean, that, and some of that is cultural. I'll be real. I mean, I'm not talking about cultural like race. I'm talking about cultural like economics. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because when you're, you know, if your parents taught you how to live check to check, or you watched the examples of living check to check, the last thing on your mind is insurance. I mean, like even myself, you know, for probably the first 3 years of having a license in a car, I didn't have auto insurance. And then I think the first apartment, I think probably the third apartment that I had, I mean, I kind of went back to back a little bit with some of the ways I was living. But probably the third apartment I had was the first one where I thought about having insurance on the, you know, renter's insurance. And I was probably in my house probably 3 years before I actually put homeowner's insurance on it. You see what I'm saying? Because it was something that, you know, I had to kind of get into. I had to be trained to even think that way to insure anything. Matter of fact, I dropped my first iPhone before I put insurance on that in the toilet.
Yes, you did.
Right?
Well,
So it's like until you take that loss.
How were you trained to get into that way of thinking?
Basically, it's all about association. But and because most of the people that I grew up around didn't grow up well-to-do enough to think about that didn't think that they had extra income to have insurance.
So I will tell you, my dad, he grew up poor as poor can be. So there was cockroaches and spiders all over the home. He grew up in on an island in Florida, and so he had nothing. His parents had nothing. They were alcoholics, and he went into the Marines, and so the Marines instilled a lot of that in him. It was not from how he grew up, because his family literally had nothing when they died. They had nothing, and so for him, it was military that really taught him what to do, like how to live, and that was his family, parents per se, you know, that taught him what to do. And so I agree, it's definitely about association and who you know and what you can learn from people, which is why the whole diversity thing is so important to us, is because we can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and wanting to learn from each other.
Exactly.
You have to be wanting and willing to.
Right.
You know, the first thing I do with anybody is make sure I disturb them. Because you got to get their attention. Now that I have your attention, maybe we can have an educational conversation. But if you know everything, but you don't have everything, how you know everything? You know, so I had to learn. You know, my grandfather, when he died, had 2 life insurance policies, I think $500 and $1,500, and he had these policies for like well over 40 years. What's $2,000 going to do for a funeral?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And now he lived his life, so his children didn't need his income, and his grandchildren didn't need his income.
Right.
But if they did, then what's $2,000 going to do?
Right. That can't
You know what I'm
even.
saying?
Well, I mean, that can't even cover a funeral these days.
Right. And so you go through, and don't get me wrong, there are different types of policies that are out there. You know, I just tell people to use a common sense approach. You know, if someone is offering you a policy that doesn't make sense for you and your family, then you have to say, what sense does that make for me and my family? I need to make sure my family has X amount of dollars. Well, we're going to give you this. Well, that's 20% of what I need. Wow. Now, am I getting that because that's all I can afford now? Then there has to be a provision that's set up so I can actually, if I need to increase it, I can increase it. You know, but a lot of times the solution is not given to the family. It's a solution that's given to the family that's that fits the agent.
Yeah. They're selling something that they want to sell, not that the family needs.
My name is my name. So if I do something for a client and it's not to their benefit, then they're gonna say I did something wrong. You see what I'm saying? And they're gonna find out when they need it the most. So
and that's a hit on your character and your reputation. And
right. So I answer to something greater than the company I serve. You know what I'm saying? I want to be that person at the, funerals. But I'm telling you something. When you go to a funeral and you got a check for like $500,000, you get the biggest hug.
Right.
You get a hug bigger than the pastor.
Right. No, that's
because when they have those backroom meetings and they pass their hats and they're like, what we gonna do and how we gonna make this happen? You know, how I'm gonna live. And then here come the man with the
yeah. Feel free to think freely.
And this is the feature song of the night. Make it to the top, but just listen.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sorry. My brain's popping. So it's kind of like we're gonna have to do we might have to do part 3.
It's so interesting because I have been to both of those funerals. So like my dad's funeral, he had everything covered, and so it was awful. It was the worst, but it was like you knew that my mom was going to be taken care of, you know? And so even though it was awful and you're grieving and it's, like he prepared for this, and then going to the funerals that, it's not only grieving for the loss of the person, it's panic of what am I going to do?
That's the question. Those 5 words. What am I going to do? And when you don't have the answer, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and now you're stressing. Now, it's a correlation between someone mourning a loved one and then 30 days later that person dying.
Right.
And a lot of times that's stress.
Yeah. We got a question from Ron Cook. He says, how often should policies be reviewed?
How often does your life change? You have another child? You went from an apartment to a home?
So it's predicated on those type of
life circumstances.
If your life changes, your job,
when your overhead changes, your budget changes.
Think about it. Ron, look at it like this. You're the CEO of your company. All right, this is the fallout plan for your budget of your company. As your company changes, you want to make sure that your plan changes.
Interesting.
This
is some good info.
Something else you want to consider. With inflation. So I could have a $100,000 policy, a $300,000 policy today, for 5 years from now, it's not worth that.
Right.
So do you have a rider in place that gives me, I may start with 300, I may end with 500, but it's going to be like I had 300 because of inflation.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. There's not a $2,000 funeral anymore.
No.
Right.
Even cremations, because so many people didn't have insurance, so they started having cremations.
It's gone up.
So,
I couldn't
of
even.
course.
My dad was.
Supply and demand. It was $800, $1,500, but now everybody wants to get cremated. Nope, it's $3,500.
Ridiculous.
I'm burning myself. I'm sorry.
That was.
Sorry. My bad.
This dude right
It
here.
happened.
All right, you're getting ready here.
Shouts out.
Woo, we are back. Freethinkers Radio. This is some really good information, and I hope that you all are taking notes. Wow, I don't even know where to almost end.
I guess one last thing before we talk about so insurance policy. I'm hoping this is a quick answer, but the thing about it is a lot of times a lot of insurance policies that are offered to me have to do with whether or not they're reinvestable, maybe in 10, 15 years, versus longer term plan is kind of what I'm thinking about. 'Cause I'm not really thinking about putting this money up as far I invest where I invest. And I insure where I insure. But if I'm able, so is it good to do the policies that can do both, or do I, is it good to separate them?
You have a lot of philosophies out there. This is the philosophy I go by, because you gotta realize there's only two types of life insurance. You have a life insurance policy that you're gonna have for your whole life, and then you have a life insurance policy that's gonna be for a term.
Right.
All right. Term is gonna be pure coverage. Whole life is going to have a savings that's going to be attached. People say I can borrow against my policy. Right. Now, Federal Trade Commission says that when you have a whole life policy, 55 cents out of every dollar that you pay in your premium goes to your savings.
Okay.
That's telling you that only 45 cents for every dollar is covering the actual insurance.
Whoa. And which policy is that? What was?
In a whole life policy.
In a whole life policy.
Out of every dollar that you spend for premium, 55 cents out of every dollar goes to the savings that you can borrow.
Okay.
45 cents goes to the
actual insurance. Actual insurance.
So your coverage is only 45 cents out of every dollar.
So because but technically it's still there as long as you don't borrow.
Technically it's there if you don't borrow, but all of your savings. One of the things that I do is review policies, and you can see that when you have a savings that's attached to your policy, the first 3 to 5 years, there's nothing in it. But 55 cents out of every dollar, every 30 days went to it. So where'd that go? As an agent, I will make more money if I wrote you a $35,000 whole life policy versus a $300,000 term policy.
Oh, wow.
Now, let me ask you a question. What would your family want, $35,000 or $300,000?
Yeah, my family would definitely want the larger number, brother.
This is a math situation. But how much money am I getting for my family writing the $35,000 or the $300,000?
Interesting.
Wow.
This is a math question.
That's real.
So how does that equation line up for your family? You see what I'm saying? So going back to the bookends, if I have a $300,000 policy because I don't have the money in my bank and I have this policy for a term, for a period of time, while I have this policy and that premium is locked in for the next 25, 30 years, 20 years, whatever, I go make my money and put my money away. So now that I have the $300,000 in cash, do I need the $300,000 in insurance?
Exactly. That's real.
You see what I'm saying? And if I do,
I see if y'all heard that money machine in my head.
Now watch this. If I do still need the policy, I can use some of the interest off of my money that I've built to pay my policy.
Interesting.
That's what it is.
I am now self-insured.
Sheesh.
Wow. We have been talking about coping with the death of a lost one that's been unforeseen in light of all of the natural disasters that's been going on, and just preparing for life, period. And we have been talking with York Glover. If someone wanted to get their policy reviewed by you, sir, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
My cell phone does not cut off for my clients. I tell all my clients between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. I'm in a coma. But you can reach me 803-490-5878, or you can call the office. It's 803-772-7449.
Wow. That was really interesting. I'm over here writing notes because I'm going to check into some things.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to make sure, because I did hear the show 2 weeks ago. I tuned into the show. If you have a child and nobody wants to go through that situation, but because nobody wants to go through that situation, you want to make sure that that's prepared for too. Because you want to have the money to take care of the arrangements and the services, but I may not go back to work after 3 days. And I could take vacation, but I may still need time to grieve. I may need counseling that is not paid for in my benefits. And a lot of times we'll just make it through, but we're not making it through. So there's a preparation that you want to have just so that you can be okay. And these are conversations that I have, because I'm not going to be emotionally attached to your situation. That's not what you're having me serve you for. My job is to make sure I give you the best service possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can have you back so we can talk a little bit deeper.
Anytime.
That was
Might be next week.
Right.
I'm going to play you next Monday because
good.
we were going to make part 2 the last of this series, but obviously,
This was really
obviously there's some worms that haven't been open. Because it took us 32 minutes to talk about insuring your finances. We haven't talked about insuring your emotions, insuring the emotions of your children, your family.
That's the part that I'm gonna cry at.
Yeah. We shouts out. Beth did not cry.
I didn't cry.
And
Great job, Beth.
That's what I'm talking about.
It.
Keep the hope.
Whew.
Feel free to think freely.
Shouts out. We out.
Freethinkers